Good morning, listener. My name is Salvatore Limo. I'm with Anthony Bosico, and you are listening to The Delusionals. We started our Patreon page. You can go over and pledge $5 a month at patreon.com/The Delusionals. Every dollar goes towards supporting the show. Guarantees that we'll bring on more exciting guests, create more content, introduce a live series and a reading series, and my friend Anthony has something to say about leaving us some ratings.
Hey guys, as you know, we're 10 episodes deep and we'd like to hear some feedback from you guys. So if you could go on ratethispodcast.com/delusionals and leave us a rating, that would be great, and give us some insight on what content you want to hear. Also, you could reach us at Delusional Amp, the Delusionals Pod at Twitter and Instagram, and for Sal, Deadbeat Limo and Sal_Limo on Instagram. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
What the fuck did you just say, Sal?
We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. If you want rule, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
So today we have a special guest. It's Gabrielle Alexa. If you've read Playboy, if you've read Huffington Post, if you've read Bitch Media, you've probably seen one of her articles. She's an activist, content creator for Honey Adult Play. A writer, web developer, if I'm not mistaken.
I am. Yes, I am a web developer. Right now, I'm mostly doing content creation. That's what pays the bills. But I also am really interested in like data and creating like a decentralized web. So the trajectory that I see myself in is like using code as a way of expanding my activism. But I also really like game development. So, like right now, I'm making a video game for my girlfriend for her birthday.
What?
Wow.
That is insane. That's awesome.
That's a labor of love.
I know. And she keeps texting me like, I hope my birthday's special. I'm like, oh my God.
Just you wait. Can you? Well, I'm assuming you can't really talk about that, but
about what?
The video game.
I'm gonna deploy it on a website, so it's gonna be like a quarantine adventure game.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
And she's gonna be like the main character, but I'm not gonna like give it to her. I'm gonna drop it on social media and tag her.
That's really cool. So you can tell why we've had someone like Gabby on the show. I mean, like, this is all just 5 seconds in is all very, very interesting stuff. But Gabby has a pretty big social media platform, and we've been friends in junior high, I believe, since junior high, and like in that time, I've kind of seen you use your platform for so many causes. And I've read some of your articles too. So like, if you can really briefly get into like, you've also had TV appearances too about, I believe, slut shaming.
Yeah, I talked about Instagram and slut shaming for PBS, which is interesting because it's still part of my activism now. I'm really interested in like, I don't think we notice it as much in the United States, for example, but in a lot of countries, the way that we use the internet for activism always corresponds with like sexual rights. So when it comes to like finding networks for talking about sexual violence and for finding support throughout sexual violence, people always turn to the internet. And when it comes to like advocating for queer and trans people, it's always like in tandem with like the growth of the internet. So it's interesting that it was so like unfathomable to the people on PBS. Like literally those old people were like, what are you talking about? But now
I remember them pulling up a picture from your Instagram,
and it was just my butt.
And they were like so appalled. They were just like, why would you do this? And you're just like, because it's not a big deal.
Right. But now in like a post, you know, now that we've had more of a conversation around Me Too, and now that we're almost entirely living on the internet, I think people understand my point more. And now they're like looking at other countries and how they can use the internet and like sexual rights to advocate for marginalized people.
Damn, that's awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Gabby's going to talk some shit with us today. Sex labor is something that I'm sure you're very passionate about too. I mean, you create content for Honey Adult Play. So something that happened recently that I thought was kind of fucked up was the whole Bella Thorne OnlyFans situation. I don't even know what Bella Thorne looks like. I don't know what she's famous for. I really don't. I don't know anything about her.
She's on that show with Zendaya.
Euphoria?
No. What? Is it a Nickelodeon show or a Disney show? Shake it up. No idea. I just Googled it. Shake it up.
Shake it up. I have no clue what the fuck that is. But I do know that she decided to make an OnlyFans, raked in about like $1 million in profit, and then like didn't release any nudes or something like that. And then
she was like saying that it was full news, like even messaging people that she was going to send out full news, and then she just sent out underwear pics or something. It was all for like, she said it was for a movie or a documentary on how far people will go for the internet, which I think is a good topic for people to cover, just not her. How do you like, it's very voyeuristic, you know, to like sign up one day and then within the week be like, no, I could write a documentary on it.
Yeah, that is a little strange. It's also, what credentials does she have to really do that?
She is famous. That's really it. She was.
That's like, true. That's fair. I mean, the situation, the way it unfolded was that it basically crashed the payment app or whatever that they use for OnlyFans, and a lot of people were asking for refunds, I believe, and the people that pay out on OnlyFans, or the company, whatever, the technology, they more or less were just like, all right, now all sex workers on this have to get paid bi-weekly. Is that correct?
Kind of. It's not necessarily that she crashed it. It's that in order to issue refunds, like there's fees that you have to pay when money goes back and forth. So because the fee was so high, they were actually losing money by having to issue so many refunds in such a short period of time. So because they took such a huge L on money, they made it so that you have to pay out once a month rather than once a week. So that they're hoping that if they do have to issue a refund, they will have accumulated the money back in that time if they're only paying out, or that people won't even have cashed out by then before the refunds are issued. So they'll have the money to honor those refunds. And just because it was such she was literally lying, saying like, I'm going to send one thing and send something else. So now they've like issued a cap on how much people can even pay for that kind of content.
Damn, that's fucked up.
It's like a really low cap too. It's like $30 for like person to person messages, which is like, I mean, I don't perform online sexual labor, but if I certainly wouldn't do it for $30.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of very close friends who use OnlyFans, and they're tight about it. People, I think a lot of like civilians who engage with like sexual labor are always saying, I would never do it, but if I was going to do it, I would do it for like $1 million. And then it's like, what are the realities of like the systems for doing that work? Because there are caps, and how much can you even make in that platform?
I always joke when when you ask your friends dumbass fucking questions like, would you X and Y for X amount of money? I'm always the guy that's like, I'll do anything for like $1,000, and they're like, what? You're crazy. It's like, you know how much $1,000 is, and like, it's not like, I'm not asking a lot. I'm not going to ask a lot. I don't know. I also don't have an OnlyFans, so maybe that's why. But yeah.
But you should though.
Someone who liked my writing and like always supported me randomly sent me like a large sum of money last year, and it literally saved my life. Like I always say that it's a huge case for like the government intervening in people's day-to-day lives, like giving stipends, because it can be such a like game changer.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it was for me. Like everyone, as a lot of people that I talk to will say, if you give people money, then they will just like waste it on nonsense. And I went to VR World like 7 times. But I also spent it on like upgrading my laptop, my lighting equipment that I used to create content with. And then I put it towards going to coding school.
That's awesome. I mean, like, that's the other part. Like, I kind of have similar experiences, not like that, but like, shit, if I had somebody give me a lump sum of money right now, I'd probably be able to do a lot of shit like that. But yeah, I think we kind of undermine that, and I think it's also, when it comes to sexual labor, we also undermine that. We don't really treat sexual labor like labor, and it kind of is. And I mean, I've always been curious, is that something that you have, like, because like we've mentioned before, you create content for Honey Adult Play. Do you have any, like, do people ever make you feel belittled for doing that kind of stuff?
I think by the time I started working there, my platform was already pretty aligned with that. Like before I started working for Honey, I was working for Balesa, like doing like content here and there and Sweet Vibes. So I don't think that it was like, people were pretty used to it by then. But now that Instagram has this Reels feature, which obviously has this like a much higher engagement rate because they're using kind of the same For You page thing that TikTok has, but within Instagram. Mm-hmm. So like I had a Reels that got 196,000 views, but it was like, I have to make TikToks basically for my job. So it wasn't like, I wasn't posting one from my personal TikTok. It was one from the brand TikTok. And clearly like the point of the TikTok is to sell our products. But then someone commented like, since when do we post content like this? I was like, literally grow up. Like who doesn't post content like this? And I talk about it a lot in my book about the rise of the sex positive influencer and how it exists specifically in the context of like a United States abstinence only sex education system.
Yeah. I think in addition to everything else that Gabby does, Gabby is writing a book entitled How to Live with the Internet and Not Let It Ruin Your Life. Is that correct? Not let it run your life. Got it. So so like, what is the inspiration for that? Like,
so I actually didn't come up with the idea myself. I recently wrote for Bitch Media about the Me Too movement, and like, I guess there's a culture around the Me Too movement in which it has also affirmed very misogynistic personalities who don't agree with any research on sexual violence, who every time there's a high profile case of sexual violence, a lot of those people like rally around the person and position the abuser as the victim. So I wrote an article about that, and obviously as someone who's studying web development, I'm going to connect it to like what I know about the internet, and I'm going to connect it also to like feminist issues. And they just found that article, my publisher, and was like, I really want you to expand on this. And like a theme that I noticed that you're always using is like, you're talking about the internet and you're talking about like women's rights and gender issues. So like, do you think you could just write a book on that?
That's cool.
Would never have thought that was my niche at all.
Have you been following like the politics of like data collection like throughout the Obama administration and the Trump administration?
Yes. And it's actually very frustrating because I'm writing a book right now and I'll like go to sleep and I'm like, oh, I wrote 600 words today. And I wake up and then the Trump administration will do something that completely not invalidates what I wrote, but that requires me to rewrite because I need to add more context or something radical has changed. And my book is slated for global release. So I can't even focus as much as I would like to on Trump because my publisher's in Australia. It's going to be released in the UK as well. So like, they don't want my focus to just be like Trump, but there are global implications to his policies. So it's like, I mean, it's a fine line.
So, like Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, you've been following that trial too? Not.
I've been following in general, like the concept of the Splinternet and how a lot of these, and not only Julian Assange, but like a lot of other cases are contributing to more of a Splinternet, more of like, we're going to end up with like all these different iterations of the internet. And the original creators of the internet, like that, their whole premise was for it to democratize the world and for everyone to have equal access to it, and for it to be this great equalizer. So like in that context, like what is the truth of data collection and censorship and a splintered internet are becoming more of a reality.
Damn. I never heard that term before, Splinternet.
Yeah, it started with like, India obviously putting huge censorship restrictions, and China as well putting, crazy restrictions on the internet, because it essentially creates these multiple iterations of the internet. If some people can only access this content, and now we have our own president saying that he wants to ban TikTok, which would further splinter the internet.
It's similar. Is it like similar to like what they did with Craigslist and removing all the sex workers postings from there because of
that was FOSTA SESTA. That was legislation that was passed by the House and the Senate, but FOSTA and SESTA are two separate bills, and each of them say that original protections that said that whoever created a website, they're not responsible for what users post on the website. Like, they're not legally responsible for them. It undermined that. So now if I am trafficking someone, for example, and I'm using Craigslist to do it, Craigslist would be legally responsible for it. So they could also go to jail for trafficking. So because it now places that restriction on the web hosts, they created more strict regulations. We saw with Tumblr, they
got rid of Tumblr porn.
Yeah.
Which was the only reason why I ever used Tumblr in the first place. But
no one has touched Tumblr since. Yeah. There were new App Store restrictions placed. So like, that's why, for example, Pornhub doesn't have an app in the App Store. That's why Facebook and Instagram have such severe policies. Twitter's the only one that was like, whatever. I don't know what Twitter's doing.
I don't know either. I mean, they like slap shit on Trump every now and then. They're always like, you can't call for nuclear bombs on other countries. It's like, I guess we should be limiting these kinds of tweets, but Pornhub is at like, I don't know too much about this, but I know that they've been recently have been accused of like child trafficking, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I've seen a lot of videos saying that they're not engaging in like ethical consumption or creation of pornography.
They are not. Oh my goodness. I could talk for so long. I actually just had an issue with Honey Adult Play because we got called out for supporting unethical people in the adult industry. So then we did a whole series on the ethics of porn as of 2 weeks ago. And I even interviewed an intimacy coordinator about it. But when it comes to Pornhub is owned by MindGeek. Mm-hmm. So MindGeek owns, I believe, Xhamster, Pornhub, RedTube, all the websites that kind of look the same. They all have the same aesthetic. So that entire
trust me, I know.
entire group of brands. But then they also own like individual companies. So like Brazzers, Reality Kings. So what they do is they just like they make it very unprofitable for these small production companies, and they steal content from those production companies and like repost them on other accounts and stuff like that. So then eventually it's just like no longer sustainable for them to continue doing business, and then they buy them.
Damn.
That's why they now have essentially a monopoly, and MindGeek was not even originally a porn company. They're a tech company.
Are you familiar with the Mia Khalifa complaint which she had with Bang Bros, and like how like they can like I believe her complaint was that they continued the syndication of her videos even though that she clearly wanted to stop being involved in porn? Is there a way a porn actress or actor could like have their stuff removed, or do you have to unionize to do that, or is
I guess it's an issue with the industry in general, which is that like there's not a lot of transparency around distribution, and you don't have a lot of power over the distribution of your content. It's like an entirely different realm than the vanilla entertainment industry. So you should, as a content creator, have more power over distribution. You should be able to opt out at the very least, and they still give contracts as if it's like regular entertainment. And sometimes like even those contracts are not 100% transparent in terms of distribution. So I think that she signed up, she didn't make that much money, she didn't really understand the contract, and I don't think any of us understand contract law that well. When I was filling out my contract for my book, for example, I had a lawyer look over it, and I received questions that I just had not even thought to consider. So I can only imagine that it's worse for a huge corporation like MindGeek.
Especially with something as intimate as pornography too. I'm sure that it's not very cut and dry either.
So I know that she wanted to get out of it. I know she didn't make that much money, but I think that that's true for a lot of people in the adult industry. They just don't have as much of the space to complain about it as Mia Khalifa. But she only ever did like 3 months worth of videos, and she's still like the number 7 searched porn star.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. That's some numbers, man. She's like the Drake. No, not the Drake. That's like Lil Nas numbers, kind of. Drake.
No, she's the Fetty Wap, because like Fetty Wap had like 4 songs on the radio at the same time, and then like she just dropped off. I mean, personally for me, that's not really my thing. But it's
Mia Khalifa or Fetty Wap?
Actually both.
I like Fetty Wap. I don't know. I don't have a problem with either of these people, really. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, like, it's weird how porn is such a big industry, but it's demonized. It's like all these things at the same time. It's demonized and worshipped. It's, it's monetized, but it's not at the same time. There's plenty of porn stars that don't end up really making money. And like,
we didn't even finish talking about what Pornhub did. We just talked about Foster Sesta. But I was saying that they own a bunch of these companies. They've also had a lot of videos with underage people in it. So they gain money like per click, right? So for a lot of people who want to get their content removed, because the process of removal is so difficult, Pornhub has like racked up money from clicks on videos with underage people and then not done anything to really address that. But Pornhub has honestly great marketing. Whoever's on that marketing team, do you remember like it like snowed and they cleaned up the people's streets with like
yes.
Pornhub trucks? Like,
no, wait, actually, no, I don't.
I don't remember that.
They like shoveled the snow when there was, it was like a blizzard or something. And Pornhub was like, we're just going to send a bunch of trucks that say Pornhub out to clean up the streets. Great marketing. Or they'll do like free premium because it's a pandemic, free premium because like they do.
They did I think it was like free premium ebony during Black History Month, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but I did see it on Twitter and I was like, okay.
Actually, that's a great like jumping off point to something that like I feel like there has been colorism in porn in the last 10 years, because like for me, all the ebony girls have been getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Like I don't see any, like I would have to go down to the amateur ranks. Not that it's like, when I say down, I mean major porn is like the big, this is the big leagues. So like, do you know, is it just me or does anyone else notice like the colorism in porn?
I mean, porn is just like, the tropes are just problematic in general. So it's like, I don't know that it's gotten worse or if I just am getting woker and notice it more. I almost wonder, because like they've been pretty bad.
I mean, like right now, like the ebony women leading porn right now is like Carly Dean and like Tiana Trump. And back then, you see like Jada Fire, Lacey Duval, like more dark-skinned women, more voluptuous-looking women. So it's like, I wonder if there's like a unconscious like racism towards it.
I mean, I was just
an industry like shrinking.
But what I would say is that in like searching for ethical content, I don't even think that the way that content is categorized on all these tube sites is ethical. So I tend to favor like independent studios. So for example, at first I was like really supportive of Erica Lust, who's like claims to be like the feminist pornographer. I interviewed her even when she was in New York, and she talked about like what it was to be like, you know, just a regular woman who started an entire studio on like, she refuses to categorize based on race. So like you're never going to be like Ebony Video. Like it's always about like what kind of behaviors happen, or like what genders maybe, but like not like Ebony bitch like gets railed by like never anything like that. But then pretty recently, after I interviewed her, someone let me know that even though she like brands herself as like this feminist, that she has a lot of like sexual violence on her sets. A lot of it is just like branding. I know. So now I guess it's like pushed me to like look for, I guess, more obscure studios.
That is tricky.
But I feel like that gives me the freedom to like find other websites that are not going to like, I don't know, disrespect me as I'm just doing a search for the video I want to see.
Right. So is that like, are you, in a sense, would you be kind of considered like a contractor for these kinds of like industries, where like you can, hey, I'll promote your content if, you know, if your porn is ethical and stuff like that? Is that like something that you engage in, or is that that's just
well,
like
so
I used
to be a brand ambassador for Bellesa. So they're
mm-hmm.
like the original feminist porn website, but I will say that they're very white feminism, you know, mm-hmm. like as much as they brand themselves as that. And I love them. I still promote their products. They also sell like shirts and toys, and they're like, they're
aren't they mostly female directors?
Correct. Too? But I think that's the issue. I mean, and this is true of every industry. That's the issue.
I just wanted to flex my porn knowledge.
Because the issue when you like brand yourself as like, I'm a feminist doing this, like I'm a woman doing this, and I'm going to support all women doing this, because all women just cannot agree on what support even looks like for the entire community that makes up women. So I just don't 100%.
No comment.
You know what I mean? Like what?
No comment. Women not supporting each other.
It's like, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a black vice president. Everyone's so hype about Kamala. I don't support Kamala. I don't think that she represents my politics or I don't. Kamala Harris, absolutely not.
Yeah, I got lit up. I was on Twitter, like I posted a meme and was like something about Brianna Joy Gray. I don't remember, but I replied like under her tweets. If you reply to anything in Brianna Joy Gray's mentions, you will get demolished by like some libs. It's so crazy. But I don't know. I made some tweet and somebody said that I hate my mom because I don't want women in power. And I'm like, if I could vote for Brianna Joy Gray, I would, like 3 times over. But okay. But yeah, I kind of wanted to talk a bit about like, I feel like these things are all interconnected. Like, I know that you are polyamorous, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. I have recently discovered the point that it can be an act of anti-capitalism. And I think in combination with everything that we just discussed, I do think that at the root, there is an essence of anti-capitalism there. And I think that it's, you know, owning your labor, and if your labor involves your body and you own your body, then you can do both. And I think that in itself is an act of anti-capitalism. So I kind of just wanted to ask, like, you know, for you, is there that same, do you have that same connection to these things? Like, are these all methods of anti-capitalism for you?
So I think cis heteropatriarchy is very much an aspect of capitalism. And the construction of like the nuclear family, and even like the 40-hour work week, like those are all elements of capitalism. And I think the reason that we have the nuclear family and the amount of time that we think is normal to spend with your family is a result of capitalism. And very, like growing up under patriarchy, I feel like I was often told that I had to be a certain type of person to be able to like deserve love or happiness or money. And all of those fit into the framework that is capitalism. Like I had to participate in capitalism in a very particular way, even outside of my work. Like even when I leave the workplace, I still have to carry the values of my workplace with me to be deserving of a successful life. And I think that therefore polyamory like pushes against that, because it says that that no one person can make you 100% happy, and or not 100% happy, but that even if you're happy with one person, that doesn't mean that you should close yourself off to other connections, and that your family structures can just be like reimagined. So like, why do we only need two people raising children? Why does it require you to be like an insulated group? And I think that in the past we were more community based as humanity, and that with the proliferation of capitalism and racial capitalism and all of those things, that like we extinguished other community systems in which communities were raising families and raising children.
It's kind of interesting that you mentioned community, and then in the same conversation you also mentioned the Splinternet, which is kind of like nationalized interests and foreign interests and like different sections of the internet. And like it kind of does seem like we're heading more toward, I can't speak for the rest of the world obviously, but like it does definitely seem like the US is headed for a more like segregated, you know, maybe not in policy, but definitely in like behavior. Everyone is more individualistic and like sectioned off, I would say, from each other. So
I mean, I have a lot of hope, perhaps because I do know so much about the internet and about like tech and in general. I think that there are so many things that we're developing. Again, like the internet was created to be this great democratizer, you know? So a lot of people are saying that we have to return to that original premise of the internet, and it connects, of course, to data. I am really excited as someone who is a React developer on the front end. There's a technology called Blockstack, which ties into React on the front end. And it's a way of data scaling. So right now we store data on servers. Amazon Web Services owns most storage space. So even if you're like, I'm not going to shop at Amazon, if you use Netflix, that uses Amazon. So like, regardless, like it's almost impossible not to support Amazon, even if you're trying to be like the most ethical consumer of tech. And then it's really costly then to scale any website, because if you have a really great idea and you deploy the code and it's like well written and users love it, but you have X amount of users, you end up having to pay for more and more storage space. And on the back end, you have to pay for SQL space. So like that's specifically database space, but then storage space for the actual like the files, and then bandwidth. And I guess like in the same way that when we first started using phones, we used to have to pay per text message. I don't know if you recall, that was wild.
Oh yeah, I do. I remember my sister used to get yelled at every day for that shit.
She used to get yelled at too. So in the same way that we had to eventually switch to like unlimited plans as the culture around texting changed, I think that we have to look at, you know, now that we use the internet differently, how can the culture around like storage and data change? And Blockstack runs through blockchain technology, so it's also a way of being anonymous. So if you've ever like used any Blockstack app, as soon as you register with Blockstack, you have a username that goes for all of your apps. So say I'm playing a video game, like say I'm playing like an alternate version of 2K, and I have my high score on that. If I sign up for another game, I don't have to go through the registration process all over again, like putting in my email and all of those things. I log in with the same key, and it automatically loads all of my data in. So even if like now I'm playing Animal Crossing and I see, oh, I have so much fun playing Animal Crossing with this person, do they play other games? I can go find them on other games. But then I could also say, oh, it looks like they're also using this like alternative to Instagram. Let me find them on that. And it becomes like more what the internet was originally supposed to be. I think that in the next couple of years, we're definitely going to move to decentralization, because we also see huge censorship, especially for Black and brown and queer people and women and sex workers. So like when we're removed from platforms, and I've lost my Instagram before, and I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't devastating, because by the time I woke up, my friends had retrieved my account again. Like they personally emailed Instagram. So I woke up at like a smooth 2 PM and I already had my account back. But it was really scary, the potential for that to happen, because I would lose everything. If I lost my Instagram, I would have to start all over again with something that I worked so hard to build and something that I used for my business. And since I do work with a particular set of brands, like I remember Balesa released this shirt that said "Never Her Fault." So we all, like, they sent us the shirt in advance, and we all like did our different photo shoots in it. So we're all going to post on the same day promoting this shirt, and then all of the proceeds from that sale we're going to go to RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And they were going to also promote the posts like using Facebook advertising, which is a huge way that people, make profit. Obviously, Facebook advertising is like the main thing that people are going to lean on for like a flash sale like that. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook decided that it was too political. I don't know how in the world a shirt that says "Never Her Fault" is too political, but they said it was too political and they banned the ads.
That is also
doesn't take much.
Yeah, that's incredibly interesting. I mean, like I was actually just about to ask, like, being a leftist content creator like yourself who uses, a lot of your livelihood comes from Instagram, I'm assuming, and the internet in general. And like, how kind of scary is it that we're kind of seeing this like Cold War 2.0, like McCarthyism in real time unfold before us? And it's weird because like a lot of right-wing groups use these apps to like organize real violence against people, but messages are something as simple as like you said, it's just like outright banned. And it's kind of crazy. Like, do you think that there's a valid concern among leftists for the content that they create on social media?
Yeah, 100%. There was also when I was more prominently like going to protests, there was also police using surveillance via those videos to find protesters. And I know personally a lot of protesters who have been followed since the protest, like more so like the higher level organizers, like police cars outside of their home, which is something that like growing up I thought that was like a story of history and not something that I would see replicated.
White van parked outside, real subtle, guys. There was a
I don't even hide in the white van. They just have police cars outside of their home.
Oh yeah, because they don't care. I mean, they know they're being recorded. They don't care. Because they know that they can get away with it.
Like, what's gonna stop them exactly? Like,
you gonna call the cops on the cops? You gonna call IA?
Well, so there was a protester at Abolition Park. I'm not going to describe him, but he actually ended up being in the New York Times for like there were dog units, like all this fucking crazy shit was outside his house. And I remember seeing the guy at the protest at Abolition Park, and I was like, he's not really doing anything. He's just letting people. He would just point out if there were white supremacists in the crowd, which I think is a pretty valuable, method of de-escalation. I mean, I don't know, call me crazy, but it is kind of insane. Like, you go on Twitter and there's like I retweeted something about Lebanon having more ammonium nitrate just hidden somewhere out in the open where it could cause another fucking explosion, and I shared it and I was like, this is crazy. And some person responded and was just like, I don't trust Russia state affiliated media. And I was like, I mean, cool, but like this has nothing to do with Russiagate though. This is about ammonium nitrate being hidden in docks. So it's kind of weird, the hysteria that it creates. And like, I'm pretty sure like our opt-out partners got pegged as a Russia state affiliated media. So it's weird. Like,
we're not big enough yet, so
we're not. I mean, we'll get there, but we aspire to be Russian trolls.
It's funny how like the Russian government doesn't like try to infiltrate the Washington Post or the New York Times or any like big publications where they have the most influence. It's the fringe, too far left-wing publications who don't really have any power, who rarely get like any clicks. So it's like,
Gabby's already had her Instagram almost taken down. Do you fear for another, like, what do you do if that happens again?
Well, I'm less afraid in a post-pandemic world because the volume of people using the internet at this point, Instagram is not able to like police in the same way.
Oh, okay.
I will say that I have definitely censored myself over the years. Like when I first started posting a lot, I just like posted whatever. And then after getting so many reports. I was like, never mind. But also, it feels like they go after particular people. Like, I feel like they used to go after my account a lot more in the past and less so now. And I still think that my content can veer towards being like a little provocative. So I'm not exactly sure like why they left me alone. Because I have a friend who, like, every time she posts, even if she'll repost someone else's post, like she'll share someone's post to her story, and then they'll give her a warning, but not the original post that she posted, which has happened to me before as well. But so I understand why, like, I know that it's something that happens on Instagram, but I'm just not sure what exactly they're using to meter, like, who can post what. Because there are also, like, people like Gina Valentina who post pretty racy content, but because of the volume, I feel like, of traffic that they bring to Instagram, they're not punished in the same way.
It's kind of weird. I remember like a few months ago when Bella Hadid posted like a passport photo of her father's Palestinian passport, and they took that down. And if you're gonna take that down for a Palestinian passport picture, and that's Bella Hadid, it's not some, no offense, but like she's like a not world class, but world known model. Yeah. So exactly why I know why they took it down because it's Palestine, but like a passport, really? Like that's the line that we've arbitrarily started to like cross.
I'm also not sure why they would take it down just because of Palestine. What?
Well, Zach Fox, his show on Vice got taken down because he said "Free Palestine" live on air. Yeah, you didn't hear about that? Yeah, man. It was a new show on Vice, and like, Vice is the creator of, if I'm not mistaken, like the owner of the Vice network owns like Fox and created Vice, and it's just like, what do you believe in, dude? What the fuck?
Just money. It's interesting because the same thing happened to Into, a publication I used to write for. They were owned by Grindr, which, as y'all know, Grindr. And then it came out that the owner of Grindr is actually like a homophobe.
What?
He was just a tech mogul who liked money, and he just knew that he could make money on an app concept in which gay men could meet up. So he was like, sure, like he invested in it just like for the return, not because he agreed with the politics of Grindr, and then released a publication as a way of making more money. And then it was the publication itself that did the reporting to discover that and posted it. And he just quietly shuttered the publication. So they emailed me like 2 months ago to tell me that my writing is going to be removed from the internet permanently, which,
what the fuck?
Which ethically, like, even if a publication closes, I don't expect them to remove my writing. I expect them to maintain that as like a historical record of the journalism that was done. Mm-hmm. They deleted the website straight up.
Wow. So censorship is also like, I know that this is kind of like the censorship conversation, but like it's pretty vital to leave shit up. And I didn't know this at first. I remember when like 4 years ago, I was just like, why can't we just take things down? But now the older I get, the more I'm just like, no, you have to leave things up there because you have to be able to scrutinize things publicly. And I remember people telling me like not to be so openly critical of Biden and Kamala. And it's like, the information's out there. Why can't I pick it apart? Like, are you fucking kidding me? And I don't get it. I don't get the mentality behind that. Like,
I think it's that we've been sold this two-party system as like when there are two sides, good and evil, then it's easy to be like, oh, I'm going to pick this side, and that's it. But to think more critically about the entire system and to be like, why do we only have two options in the first place? Like,
yeah, it's too much work for people.
Not even that it's too much work, but it's a forfeiture of control.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, if I have to acknowledge that the system is like inherently skewed against me, then what do I have? What is my individual power to make change?
Yeah. People don't ask that question enough. And it's funny because the reality of it is like there's still a lot you can do as an individual. Like, it might involve breaking the law sometimes, but like, you're probably not going to get caught most of the time, hopefully, God willing. But did you did you see this article about how to get young people to vote for Joe Biden?
I wouldn't even open it if it had been on my timeline. So no.
I'm gonna read some things to you, and because this article blew my fucking mind. First of all, it's
voting.
do I plan on voting? I mean, not really. I don't really care, honestly. It doesn't matter in New York. Like, if I lived in a swing state, I would vote. But because I don't really give a fuck. But do you feel the same?
Correct. If I lived in a swing state, I would vote, not because I have an enormous amount of faith in Biden or because I think it's like the lesser of two evils. He's still pretty evil to me, him and Kamala. But
oh yeah,
the work that I do really believe in is often local work, and like I believe in pushing the Democratic Party further left. And I know people are really critical of our ability to do that, and I don't know that we can push the presidency. Like, we can't push Biden himself further left, but certainly we've seen a lot more progressive candidates. Out of Brooklyn, we just got Jabari Brisport in the state Senate, and I love him. First openly gay, Black, Caribbean man. What?
Yeah. Yeah, that in itself is pretty ballsy. Like, just that alone.
Sarah Soufront, he's the first Haitian city council member.
Right. Like, we're seeing a lot more people who have like universal health care and climate change as like important things to handle. And we've already seen just from having like AOC what one person can do. She's just like, I think the reason we see so many like trending clips from her is because she's part of the oversight committee. So like, I think electing more people to committees like that and to do more local work is obviously like, that's what is going to overall improve the country. And it's a slow process, but I think that it's enabled when we vote, unfortunately, for people like Biden. Like, the only way that we're going to be able to tackle climate change as a nation is for Biden to defer to the politicians who actually know what to do about climate change. And when we push for like more, at least more of a conversation around like not supporting fossil fuels and why do we have these big lobby groups interfering in politics?
Yeah. They're trying to frack in Williamsburg, I think, right now too.
I mean, Biden doesn't want to eliminate fracking.
No, he doesn't. So go ahead, Anthony. I'm sorry.
The only saving grace about all this I see is that maybe not this generation, because this fucking generation loves Obama and his neoliberalism, but the next generation, Generation Z, who doesn't have like a reverential view about him. And like, I think since we saw him get inaugurated, all that, and they didn't, I think that their cynicism could actually work into actual creating change.
Instead of saying
Gen Z is the shit.
Say that again?
I said I do think Gen Z is the shit, but I almost think that we like romanticize the politics of Gen Z too much. Like, we're like, oh, but Gen Z is gonna save us because it absolves us of like being millennials who affect change. Like, millennials are pretty cynical too. We're the first generation that is like not making as much money as our parents, like statistically. So I think we're fed up too.
Oh yeah, I just got engaged, and I don't know many people my age that are even pursuing engagement. Not, and that's like not really the issue, but the we got something to say?
So I think that the finances of like the wedding industry and of marriage in general, I just don't agree with it as a
That was not a touchdown.
Correct.
It's a way that wealth is like definitely hoarded by already wealthy families. Not that everyone who gets married is wealthy, but like that's essentially what it does. And
exactly.
And there are rights that married people have that I don't understand why we wouldn't guarantee that to just like people. And it's
exactly.
And it's weird that immigration is done based on marriage. Like, if I marry someone, if I was not a citizen and I married someone in this country, that would give me citizenship. That like,
I mean, marriage is a business transaction, so it's basically co-signing someone's, like, I guess, citizenship here. So
like that's kind of my point that I was trying to make. Like, I know not a lot of people that I know are even pursuing something like that, and I don't really blame them. And not to mention, I don't know people that are even in a position to be able to afford homes. And it's like millennials are kind of displaced and just fucked overall. I hate to be negative, but it is what it is. And it's funny that we speak so much about Gen Z because we interviewed some Gen Z activists, and they told us, like, don't get it fooled. Like, there's right wing Gen Zers too, and they're scarier than your millennial right wingers. And I kind of see that. I mean, I don't know if I would apply that to someone like Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't really know. I just know that he's an aspiring cop. But I think if one 17-year-old feels emboldened enough to go to a protest with the rifle, then I can't imagine what other Gen Z right wingers are doing on the low. But I think another thing that kind of speaks to how little this country understands how to appeal to young people, like, I'm gonna force read this article to you, Gabby. I know you would have skipped over it at any other point in time, but the picture is Joe Biden. Look, he kind of looks like Richard Nixon in this picture. It's like a black and white photo of him putting on sunglasses and
aviator sunglasses.
And the title is making Joe Biden cool. Young people aren't particularly excited about Joe Biden. One strategy to change their mind: convince them that they're voting for a big progressive crew.
Specifically the Democratic Avengers.
So,
which is like...
Wait. Ben Wessel was nervous. Joe Biden had just won the Democratic nomination, and the youth-focused Super PAC Wessel runs Next Gen America now had to figure out how to persuade the generation of TikTok and trigger warnings to turn out to vote for a 77-year-old man, best known for record players and malarkey. It's funny because, like, the article is more or less just like, yeah, Biden fucking sucks, but, like, how do we get him to teach children? Like, he's just like, there's so many people on our staff who are like, I don't know if he was in my top 3. And Trump backers are likely to strongly support Trump than Biden, and, like, there's no real support for Biden. And so the way that this man strategized how to appeal to the youth was he made a trailer called The Democratic Avengers. And it's like comic book style. AOC is like the climate hero. Joe Biden is the I guess he's like the Captain America, like he brought them all together. And Bernie Sanders is what did they say Bernie Sanders was? I don't even know. They said something stupid.
I didn't read that fucking video.
I saw the video. The video is really stupid. But, like,
I mean, go ahead, Gabby.
Biden is just, like, not in the same camp as Bernie or AOC. And in particular, like, the Justice Democrats are that progressive Avengers team. Like, they ran together. They run on, like, similar aims. They're very, like, working class and, like, let's give back, very Robin Hood-esque, you know, like, let's give back to the working class and to everyday people. And Biden is literally not that. He's like, oh my God, let's expand police budgets. Like, so I don't understand how you can create a video that frames them in that way. Even just like AOC being like, we shouldn't have military ads on Twitch where kids are playing Call of Duty. Like, even her willingness to go to connect with young people, to connect with people online of different classes and races and ethnicities. Like, Biden does not have that. His idea of reaching out to people was making an Animal Crossing character that sells, like, because you can make clothes in Animal Crossing, and, like, you can make flags to put in your, I don't know if you guys play Animal Crossing. So he made, like, a bunch of things that people can, like, bring to their islands and, like, set up. But I'm not going to set up a Biden-Harris flag on my Animal Crossing. Like, my girlfriend and I doing Animal Crossing, we did a police brutality protest. So we put, like, little sticks and, like, there's, like, campfires. So we put all the campfires in a circle and then made a flag that was, like, a cab. Like, that's our Animal Crossing. Like, so I'm not really... Why would we put a Biden-Harris flag up next?
If Animal Crossing adds a riot feature, I will definitely be the outside agitator and the crisis actor. I would love that in an Animal Crossing game. That'd be fucking sick. You just go to other people's towns and break their shit.
You can't break things, but you can throw things on the floor, and you can set up campfires, and you can do, like, torches and set up flags.
That's pretty cool.
So we did the best that we could.
This kind of shows, like, the lack of imagination that the Democrats have, like, of Democratic Avengers, like the Avengers one, the movie came out over a year ago, and that moment is gone. That's like me trying to. That's like me trying to revive Game of Thrones. Like, hey, you want to be like the Starks of the United States, like some shit like that. Like, and obviously, like Joker, when it came out, I would say that's more of a mood that young people have more than like the Avengers, the good and mighty. We're going to stick to the rules. We're going to not really seek out any anarchy. Which, like in the streets, do you not see like we've had like 90 days of straight protest in one city or another, and you think that the Avengers is going to like appeal to young people? Like even the simplest of things, like
I think that's what people really appreciate about that's what people really appreciate about AOC is that she's like has her finger on trends. So for her to be able to recognize that there's military advertisement on Twitch was for her to be like, I'm gonna go play games on Twitch. And we don't have a lot of politicians who even know what Twitch is to be able to make those kind of
connections. They don't know what Twitter is.
No, I think they know now. The president has unfortunately popularized Twitter.
Trust me. Even in these Senate committee hearings, they still don't know what they. I think in one of the hearings, they actually asked the CEO of Google about a tweet being put down. So again, we're giving them way too much credit. The average congressman and / woman is like 61 years old. And that's with AOC and Ilhan Omar just jumping in with their side of youth.
Yeah, you're right. That's why like them joining Animal Crossing was like, I mean, it's one thing to play the game, but AOC was like, who wants to visit my island? Or I'm going to come visit people's islands. Like that was outreach to me. Or like finding like some really prominent Twitch people and talking about politics on their Twitch streams. Like individual people are becoming media brands now.
It's also, well, that's I feel like that's kind of like the Democratic brand, right? Like I feel like they can't really mention policy without trying to relate to some kind of point of culture or something like that. Like they can't just relate to people on policy. They have to literally be like, you like the Avengers, right? Like consider us superheroes. And it's like, how about you fucking, I don't know, give me healthcare. I don't know, get rid of my student debt. I don't know. And it's funny because even in this article too, there's when Wussel had been talking to Gretchen Barron. So basically the guy of this pack spoke to a researcher, and this researcher, when asked to describe what voting felt like, used Hunger Games as a reference and was just like, I identify with Katniss trying to give the people in my community a little more dignity and love and trying to make the world a better place. I feel like voting is an expression of this. I feel like we're living in this kind of dystopia where elites are using us as pawn for their own benefit and people at the bottom for their own suffering, which is kind of honestly not that bad of an analogy. But then the strategy from there is to say like, yeah, well, we're kind of like the Hulk, and imagine us as Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel. It's like, I don't know, ban fracking. Why do you need to do all this other extra shit?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because Gen Z and the millennials live on the internet, that they have like gone through like Joe Biden's record and seeing that he completely exploded the prison population, seeing that he made you cannot discharge debt at your student loan debt. It's like, what is there to say? You shouldn't really like give up on trying to get the youth vote, but it's like, stick to the senior citizens, stick to the disaffected Trump voters, and I guess leave Gen Z alone. Because, like, again, this is just embarrassing now.
I love that like AOC does Instagram lives. I love that a lot of like the oversight committee meetings go viral. And I think, for old people, they try to upload to their YouTube channel, like literal, like instead of posting minutes, they'll like post recordings from the oversight committee. And I am signed up for DSA updates via email. So I also get like the minutes from a lot of those meetings, especially like their eco-socialist minutes. Like, we have so many ways of getting the information that is pertinent to us. So I would think that politicians, I don't even know what spheres of the internet that they occupy, because it must not be any prominent ones. It doesn't seem like Trump, for example, being like, and we're gonna have independent energy, and we're 100% fossil fuel supportive. They want to get rid of fossil fuels. Like, yes, of course. Like, in a truly factual world, you cannot deny that these things are problematic. So I'm not understanding what corners of the internet, but it does tie in a lot to algorithms, even our Google algorithms prioritizing content that relates to things we've already searched. So whatever our starting point is for getting information, like, it's easy for those, for that information to be reaffirmed and recentered.
Do you think that AOC, like, being too online could be a hindrance for her in the future for like her run for president? Because sometimes she does get into the culture wars that Twitter brings up, and like, as we've seen, a lot of people reject the culture wars. That's why Kamala Harris wasn't really a prominent presidential candidate. That's why Joe Biden is literally the Democratic nominee. So do you think that, and like, example, like the masking, like choosing, like conservatives saying that, hey, I feel like you're infringing on my rights to choose, so I choose not to use a mask. Well, that's pretty bad. The kneeling for the anthem. There we go. Like, obviously, her politics align with Colin Kaepernick's, and the right wing doesn't like that, or it doesn't really appeal to them. So the thing about Bernie is that he actually did not delve into those culture wars, and I think that went a long way with a lot of certain demographics. And it wasn't just like leftists like us behind him. It was actual like white working class people who don't exactly who are culturally conservative but see the appeal of Bernie Sanders. That type of thing. Because like I see it on a lot of like YouTube clips of like Tucker Carlson just completely eviscerating like AOC for no reason, just because he said, like, just because she has her hair, just because her haircut's like $300, like he paints her as someone who's not populist, someone who speaks about the working class but doesn't live it.
Being with my girlfriend for 11 years, I can tell you right now, just being a woman that wants to get her hair done and dress nice is goddamn expensive. $300 for a haircut is like the average price of a haircut. Just want to say that real quick. So anybody that's it's weird because like I've heard that a lot too about AOC. I'm like, she's probably using Rent the Runway, but like also outfits for women are insanely expensive. Like you're just showing your ass. You never had a girlfriend. But you know, that's just me. That's just how I feel. I don't know.
Because everyone thinks that she's a shoo-in for like 2024, or I don't know. She would be 34, 35 around that time, or 2028. But I think she has a lot to work on with certain demographics, especially the white working class.
Yeah, I disagree. She definitely engages with a lot of identity politics, but she always makes sure to back up those conversations with like reframing it to class. You know, I think a huge disservice that the Democratic Party has done is like centering identity politics without actual policies and awareness of like how that impacts people outside of identity. So like saying that like all Black people are dealing with like this one issue ignores the fact that different types of Black people deal with that issue differently. And then in a lot of ways, white people have felt left out because Democratic politics have centered identity. So they feel like, but what about how we have been oppressed by class? What about the ways in which class is preventing us from like succeeding economically. And since the Democrats don't want to talk about that, then we're going to align ourselves with white supremacy, which is not correct. You know, it's definitely like, what a leap, you know, like what a leap. But at the very least, I do think that to a degree that Democrats have ignored certain key groups. And at the end of the day, getting votes is about how many key groups you can appeal to.
I mean, for me, I think her analysis is correct. Don't get me wrong. It's not an analysis thing. It's just that like even engaging with a Tucker Carlson or a Ted Cruz, about like just engaging with them and giving them the opportunity to paint her as a culture reductionist. I just made that term up, but someone like that.
I think I think that a lot of the
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think that a lot of the criticisms of AOC are, I think that the right gets leverage on them from the left, to be honest, because I do see a lot of her harsh critics are on the left too. And it's like I don't really know what her foreign policy is like. She's pretty silent on a lot of things, and
That's pretty bad.
The only thing that I remember is that she kind of backtracked her pro-Palestine stances. I mean, you know, I'm not an educator on Palestine and Israel, so I will, you know, leave that alone. But like, I have noticed that, and most of the time that she opens her mouth, I see a lot of leftists that critique her. And the thing that's weird to me is that I think that she engages in identity politics, but I do think that engaging in identity politics to a degree and on a certain strategic point, I think it's necessary. And I mean, you know, people also kind of forget that like identity politics was, you know, the root of identity politics, the root of the phrase is from 1977, from a black collective of feminist activists. They were called the Combahee, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Combahee River Collective.
Yeah.
And, you know, that whole movement was like, hey, you know, there is a certain kind of hierarchy or whatever in which we're advocating for all this liberation, but there is still misogyny against black women. So we need something that fights for us too. And I think people kind of mistake what she's doing for like these cultural wars and stuff. I don't really think AOC does that. I think that we've taken I think that everyone in America is guilty of this. I've done it before, where you take, you know, you hear the phrase identity politics, and yes, of course, it's been bastardized by the Democratic Party, but like there is a level of legitimacy for it, and I think that we refuse to kind of see things as a spectrum, and we kind of view them as like either or against, and it takes away from the activism that AOC does do. So it's like, that's what I think about it.
I think being in the backdrop of the Democratic Party, who cynically leans in to identity politics, if you just,
but she also doesn't get support whenever she opens her mouth from the Democratic Party. So it's like she's alone in a lot of don't get me wrong, I see why people don't really like her that much, but like I also think that sometimes she's fighting uphill battles.
Yeah, I think ultimately though, like she never set out to be president, first of all, and has pushed back against the idea that she will be president. And I think that ultimately her goal was to serve at least one term, you know, successfully. And she was part of the Justice Democrats pushing more progressive candidates into office. Like she was intentionally recruited for that purpose. So like the point is not for us to be like, finally we have our savior, AOC, and now everything is like, everything will be saved. It's the idea of like, okay, now we have her, and we're pushing for other progressive candidates, and maybe now we'll have like a pool of really great political candidates in the future. But I don't even know, like you're right, her foreign policy is okay.
I personally think that Rashida Tlaib has like, she out of everyone in the squad or the Justice Democrats, she has the right temperament to run for president. Like she doesn't wait to like. I know culturally where she stands, and I have no problems. She's exactly where I stand, but she doesn't really like talk to it. She doesn't like have this. She's not really online.
I want someone who's really online, though. Whoa.
Yeah.
After everything that we just talked about data and about like people promoting like military content on Twitch, we need people who are online. I don't want any more politicians who have no idea about like what the internet culture
but that's your preference. I'm talking about the Democratic electorate
who is not as like technological advanced as us. 2, who don't really use Twitter, and 3, like they actually like reject the whole like Trump being on Twitter, clapping back at him, or making like snide comments, like the Twitter fights. They don't actually like that.
I want a candidate that gets their politics from Twitter like I do.
Literally, what?
I want to see my candidate engaging with like TrueAnon or something and being like, you know what? Yeah, Nick Kroll's dad did have something to do with 9/11. That's the kind of shit I want from a candidate. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
We're just a more and more online society. People are in school online right now, you know, like we have so much of an online culture that it is unfathomable to me that we keep electing people who are like, oh, really? What is Twitch? Like, if you don't even know what new technologies that are super popular, like we're not talking about like someone still using LiveJournal in 2020. We're talking about like new technologies that are growing in not only popularity, but in like economic power. And like, did you see like the Senate hearing where literally they were like, Facebook, how do you make money? Like, you don't know how Facebook makes money and you want to create policies that impact Facebook? That is terrifying. That's why our antitrust laws have not expanded to include internet companies correctly.
I'm going to ask one more question and I think we should probably wrap up. But you've schooled me on the fact that like things like Tinder and Facebook learn you. Like, so I guess like my question is, if that's the case, then do you think that there's like some sort of concerted effort to leverage that into politics? Because if we combine that with the fact that right-wing groups organize mostly on Facebook and engage in racist behavior on Facebook, like I feel like there's got to be more to that than just, it kind of to me seems like a big recruitment agency for like right-wing paramilitary groups. But, and also does that like knowing that information, does that scare you being a content creator?
I mean, again, I'm really for a decentralized internet. I think that all of it comes down to, first of all, capitalism. The reason the internet is structured the way that it is because internet companies need to make money. And when we had like just chronological feeds, they weren't keeping people in the app, so they weren't making money. So they literally created a product that uses our own natural human behavior to like psych us into constantly like getting that dopamine hit from using social media, and now getting our entire, like all of our news networks are received through social media, and literally something that skews the media. Even just like our awareness of what is news comes from like, the only way to make money as a media company is if we create really sensationalized headlines. Therefore, like, even if it's not perhaps newsworthy, let's put it out there because it'll draw traffic in. And that's not how we should be reporting the news. Like, we should be focused on giving people the truth. And now we force people to do a lot of excess work to actually get down to what the truth is. And most people are honestly, they're just not doing that. So like, even recently, I was loving publications like CNN, but I wanted to look into like what their like legacy of truth is. Because in writing my own book, I'm discovering that like, I want to make sure that I'm reading laterally. So that's like checking multiple different sources and making sure like that they're good. So instead of relying on like super leftist news sources, I started first looking at like very centrist publications and then going like more for entertainment. And it just like showed me just how bad our media climate is now. Writing for when I worked physically like at Galore magazine, I was coming up with headlines was like, we go on Slack, even though we're all in front of each other, so like cool, but we go on Slack and we just like throw out the most catchy headlines, and then we'd all vote on the headlines. So I didn't particularly pick any headlines for my work. And since I've left Galore, a lot of those headlines have been changed for SEO. Like they're like, ooh, this article she wrote 3 years ago. It's like doing okay, but right now everyone's talking about this trending topic. So if we change the title, the headline, then more people will find it on Google and it'll draw them to the site and then they'll check out our other pieces. And I think that like compromises the journalism that I did at that point.
Damn.
Well, from the centrist publications, they are entertainment. I remember one CNN video showing that they actually sent.
They're considered left.
by I was being generous by centrism. So
our country is so right-wing hegemonic that like anything that's center is like radical left. So, you know.
Anyway, they sent a reporter to Syria, and then because this was after the Assad gassing his own people, and she literally picked up the book bag full of quote unquote sarin gas, and then she sniffed it, and I'm like, wait a minute. So if you claim to say that the book bag has sarin gas, why would you smell it? Why would you pick it up? And isn't it supposed to like, if it does have sarin gas, isn't it supposed to like knock you out?
I don't know. I ain't a chemist, but that sounds like a dumb fucking idea. I wouldn't pick up any fucking thing and smell it, honestly. That's a French example. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll send you the clip.
I think when we have like when we step more into decentralization and like fixing a very splintered internet, that we will hopefully see like platforms that don't prioritize content based on like rage clicks. We'll see more, hopefully more ethical, hopefully open source social media platforms. And because like right now, for me to be like, oh, I hate Instagram's politics, I'm going to switch to a different social media network, I would have to start from the ground up. So and a lot of those platforms are just not as popular. So that is not going to incentivize me to leave a company whose politics are bad. And we're seeing that even like in the midst of quote unquote cancel culture, it's impossible to cancel anyone who has reached a certain level of fame or success, because no matter what, they're insulated from ever like being held truly accountable by their community. But when you have a decentralized network where everyone owns their own data, and if I don't like the politics of this app, I can take all of my data, all of my friends, all of my whatever, and move it to another location, I think then we'll see a more fair internet. And we're very, very, very close.
I like that. I mean, I got to start reading more about like a decentralized internet, because I really like that idea. And that's something that I've heard, like a nationalized or something like that internet is kind of an interesting concept to me. It's something that I would have to read up more before I like jump on. But with that said, I think we got like 3 minutes left if you want to talk really quickly about your book.
Okay, sure. It comes out in March, apparently. They told me February, but it's looking like it got pushed to March. I'm in the editing process right now, so I'm like on the second draft. It's slated for global release through, right now you can pre-order through Target and through Amazon, but eventually we'll be able to order through other channels. I'm really excited. It talks about the internet. It talks about censorship and the Splinternet, but it also talks about like mental health, really. It was primarily meant to be a mental health guide, and so it talks about my personal experiences with trolls online, particularly in the era post Me Too. And it talks about, I think, a huge failure on social media platforms to support users in not being harassed and not facing contempt from right-wing extremists. But it also just talks about tech, and it does talk about a decentralized internet, and it talks about how all of these things are connected, because ultimately I think everything it's all one issue.
I agree 100%. Gabby, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I will definitely be buying your book. It's called, what is it?
Navigate the internet and not let it run your life.
There you go. How to Navigate the Internet and Not Let It Run Your Life, coming out in March, right?
March 2021.
March 2021. All right.
If we get there.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you again for joining us, Gabby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.